The ancient Cathar vessel, the Star Whisperer, drifted through the chilling expanse of the void, a silent testament to a civilization teetering on the precipice of oblivion. Inside its gleaming yet increasingly dim corridors, Princess Lyra, the last slender hope of the Cathar royal line, lay still on a bioluminescent cot. Her scales, once a vibrant azure, were now dulled to a sickly gray, and the intricate, natural patterns that adorned her skin seemed to recede, as if surrendering to the encroaching pallor. A strange and insidious blight, unnamed and unconquerable, had silently swept through the Cathar people, draining their vitality one breath at a time, like an invisible predator siphoning life from its prey. Their greatest scientists, their most revered healers, had labored ceaselessly, their frustration mounting with each failed remedy, each desperate, futile attempt to reverse the irreversible. Hope, once a guiding star for the Cathar, had dwindled to a faint, almost forgotten ember. The grand halls of their homeworld, usually bustling with the soft hum of their advanced technology and the gentle murmur of their populace, were now eerily quiet, punctuated only by the mournful chimes that signaled another passing. The blight consumed them from within, a slow, agonizing decay that left no marks save for the gradual dimming of their internal light, the very essence of their being. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months, and the Cathar, a proud and ancient race whose history stretched back through countless millennia, found themselves facing an end they had never envisioned, not through war or cataclysm, but through a silent, creeping fade. Lyra, though young, carried the weight of this impending extinction on her fragile shoulders. Her parents, the king and queen, had succumbed weeks ago, their final moments marked by a quiet dignity, their eyes fixed on their daughter, a silent plea for survival echoing in the now empty chambers. Lyra herself felt the blight's insidious tendrils tightening their grip, a constant, dull ache that resonated deep within her bones, a persistent chill that no warmth could dispel. Her breath came in shallow, ragged gasps, each one a struggle against the invisible forces that sought to extinguish her light. The Cathar believed their end was nigh, a tragic, lonely fade into the cosmic dust from which they had sprung. Their last desperate act was to send out a final, pleading distress signal, a faint cry into the vast, indifferent universe, a message born of utter desperation, rather than any real expectation of salvation. It was a message that spoke of a dying race, of an incurable sickness, of a need for something, anything, that could reignite the spark of life within them. They had no idea what they were looking for, only that their own understanding of biology and energy had failed them utterly. Then a miracle, or perhaps just an anomaly, flickered on their long-range sensors. From a previously uncharted, forgotten sector of space, a faint, erratic, yet undeniably potent energy signature emerged. It was crude, almost unrefined, compared to their own elegant energy readings, but it pulsed with a raw, untamed vitality that sent a ripple of bewildered hope through the Star Whisperer's depleted crew. The source was a derelict human scout ship, its hull scarred and battered, drifting like forgotten debris. To the Cathar, a race that had mastered interstellar travel before humanity had even forged iron, the human vessel was a primitive curiosity. Yet its energy signature, however, unpolished, contained a vibrancy that was strangely compelling. Driven by the cold hand of desperation and with nothing left to lose, the Cathar Elder Council, a collection of wizened, near-fading beings, made a decision that defied their millennia of cautious isolation. They would hail the human vessel. Their plea, translated into basic galactic common, was projected across the void, a fragile whisper of impending extinction, a desperate gamble against the encroaching darkness. They did not know what kind of beings inhabited the crude vessel, or if they would even understand the nuances of a dying alien race's sorrow. All they knew was that the energy signature of the human ship felt different. It felt alive in a way the Cathar had almost forgotten. It was a final, desperate prayer cast into the cosmic winds, hoping that somewhere, something or someone would hear their fading song and offer a chance, however slim, at survival. The fate of the Cathar, and indeed the fate of Princess Lyra, now rested on the unpredictable whims of a species they knew nothing about, a species from a distant, primitive corner of the galaxy. The silence that followed their transmission was deafening, punctuated only by the soft, mournful hum of the Star Whisperer's life support, a sound that seemed to mirror the last gasps of a dying civilization. Every moment stretched, taut with anticipation and the chill of impending doom. Would their desperate plea be answered, or would the Cathar simply fade into the cosmic abyss, leaving no trace but the lingering silence, the agonizing silence that had gripped the Cathar vessel? The Star Whisperer was suddenly, mercifully broken. On board the human scout ship, the Vagabond, adrift in the same forgotten sector, Sergeant Jax Ironheart Riley had been cleaning his battered rifle, the familiar weight a small comfort in the endless quiet of deep space. His ship's ancient comms unit, usually spitting static or the occasional pre-recorded navigation beacon, suddenly crackled to life with an urgent, yet strangely melodic sequence of alien sounds. Jax, a man whose life had been a brutal symphony of skirmishes and survival, whose face bore the lines of countless battles fought and won, paused, his brow furrowed as the ship's primitive but reliable universal translator struggled to decode the alien lament. The first words that solidified into understandable English were broken, desperate. Help ... life ... life ... by a complex series of scientific terms that dissolved back into garbled alien speech, then a repeated mournful plea for assistance. It was a cry that resonated with a primal fear, a sound that cut through the veteran's hardened exterior. Jax had faced down alien raiders, navigated asteroid fields, and endured weeks of isolation, but this was different. This was a plea from something utterly vulnerable, something truly desperate. He checked his long-range sensors, confirming the signal's origin. A massive, elegantly designed vessel, unlike anything he'd ever seen in his years patrolling the fringe systems. Its energy readings, though incredibly faint, were consistent with technology far beyond human capability. Yet the ship itself appeared inert, a silent ghost ship. A profound stillness hung about it, a stillness that whispered of tragedy. Curiosity, a dangerous companion in the void, tugged at Jax. Why would an advanced civilization send such a raw, almost primitive cry for help? And why from a vessel that appeared to be in its final death throes? His soldier's caution warred with a deeper, more human impulse, an instinct to respond to suffering. With a sigh that stirred the dust motes in his cramped cabin, Jack secured his weapon, strapped himself into his pilot's seat, and gently nudged the vagabond towards the source of the distress, leaving behind the comforting emptiness of the void. For the unknown dot, as the vagabond drew closer, the Star Whisperer loomed into view, a truly colossal vessel, its outer hull shimmering with a subtle, organic sheen, despite the evident signs of neglect. It was shaped like a massive, elongated teardrop, its surface adorned with intricate, almost biological patterns that seemed to shift and ripple in the faint starlight. But beneath its alien grandeur lay an unmistakable aura of profound stillness, a silent testament to its failing inhabitants. It hung in space like a majestic tomb, a monument to a fading civilization. Jocks felt a shiver not of fear, but of profound sadness. He carefully maneuvered his smaller craft towards an illuminated docking port, his movements precise and practiced, born of years navigating treacherous environments. The airlock hissed open, revealing a short, sterile tunnel, bathed in a soft, ethereal light that did little to dispel the heavy silence. The Cathar, it seemed, had no desire for ceremony. As Jack stepped onto the polished, metallic deck of the Star Whisperer, the temperature was cooler than he expected, carrying a faint, sweet, decaying scent that reminded him vaguely of autumn leaves. The silence inside the ship was deeper, more oppressive than in space, broken only by the barely perceptible hum of failing systems. The corridors stretched before him, vast and echoing, lined with murals that depicted scenes of Cathar history and culture, magnificent star cities, beings, adorned in flowing robes, and serene, wise faces. But even these images seemed to be fading, their colors muted, their vibrancy leaching away. There were no armed guards, no bustling crew, just an empty, cavernous silence that swallowed his every footstep. He followed the faint energy trail. From the distress beacon, his hand instinctively resting on the pistol holstered at his hip, a gesture of ingrained habit rather than true menace. He found them in a large circular chamber, clearly a medical bay. Several Cathar, their bodies frail and translucent, their once bright scales now dull and lifeless, stood around a glowing cot in the center. They were elders, their faces etched with deep lines of exhaustion and despair, their ancient eyes, once pools of wisdom, now reflecting a profound sorrow. They were barely distinguishable from the dim surroundings, their forms almost merging with the fading light. On the cot lay Princess Lyra, the last and youngest of her royal line. She was small, even for a Cathar, her delicate frame almost swallowed by the vastness of the cot. Her azure scales, described in the Cathar murals as brilliant and captivating, were now a pale, almost translucent gray. Her large, liquid eyes, once said to sparkle like distant nebulae, were dim and unfocused, their light slowly dying, replaced by a haunting emptiness. Her breath was shallow, each faint rise and fall of her chest a testament to her struggle against the invisible forces consuming her. She seemed suspended between life and oblivion, a fading, ethereal beauty. The Cathar elders turned their weary eyes towards Jack's, their expressions unreadable, a mix of desperate hope and ancient resignation. One, clearly the eldest, stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate, as if each step cost him immense effort. His voice, translated by Jax's now slightly more efficient but still struggling device, was guttural and raspy, thin as old parchment. Human, we thank you for answering our plea. Our race ... fading. The blight consumes our life's spark. He gestured vaguely at Lyra, then at his own shimmering, almost transparent arm. Our essence. It drains. We have no cure. The Chethar, a people who had always relied on their advanced knowledge of energy manipulation and biological synthesis, were truly lost. Their technology, while capable of interstellar travel and complex environmental manipulation, had failed them in the face of this insidious internal decay. They explained, through halting translation and urgent gestures, that their scientific models indicated a complete biological shutdown was imminent, a systemic failure of their very cellular structure. All attempts to reverse it, to even slow it down, had been in vain. The elder continued, his voice barely a whisper. Our ancient texts, they speak of a catalyst, a life force from outside ... to rekindle the spark. It is a legend, a desperate hope. He paused, his fading eyes fixed on Jax. Your energy signature. It is vibrant, unlike any we have known, full of ... resilience. Jax listened, his mind racing. He was a soldier, not a doctor, and certainly not a biologist. The idea of a life force catalyst from an ancient text sounded like something out of a child's story. But the dying princess, the desperation in the elder's eyes, was chillingly real. The elder pointed to a complex alien device, a swirling vortex of light and ethereal energy, situated beside Lyra's cot. Our analysis ... indicates a compatibility, a chance to bridge the gap, a transfusion of your essence ... into her. Jax stared at the device, then at Lyra. A transfusion? With alien equipment he didn't understand, into a being whose biology was completely foreign? Every fiber of his soldier's training screamed danger, screamed caution. This was unprecedented, illogical, insane. The air in the medical bay seemed to thicken, heavy with the weight of the Cathar's fading hopes. He could feel their silent plea, their unspoken despair, pressing down on him. The Cathar did not possess the same emotional transparency as humans. Their expressions often subtle, almost imperceptible. Yet, in the way the elders leaned forward, in the slight, almost imperceptible tremor in the elder's hand as he gestured, Jax sensed the immense burden of their dying race, all resting on this one impossible request. 1,000 thoughts flashed through Jax's mind, the mission parameters he was violating, the unknown risks, the potential for alien disease, the sheer absurdity of it all. He was a human, just one man, facing the extinction of an entire civilization. But then he looked at Lyra again. She was so frail, so utterly vulnerable. Yet even in her fading state, there was a quiet dignity, a serene acceptance that pulled at something deep within him. He saw not an alien princess, but a living being on the verge of disappearing forever. The warrior's instinct, honed over years of protecting the innocent and fighting for survival, overrode all caution. He had faced death countless times, stared it down, and emerged victorious. This was different, but the core impulse remained. Protect. Help. It was an impulse that transcended species, a raw, undeniable urge to preserve life when it hung by a thread. He thought of the endless, cold void he had just navigated, and the profound, beautiful vibrancy of the Cathar vessel, however dimmed. The universe was vast, full of wonders, and losing any intelligent life, however alien, felt like a terrible, irreversible wound. Without a moment of hesitation, without a single spoken word, Jocks pulled up the sleeve of his worn uniform, revealing his muscular, scarred arm. He extended it towards the Cathar elder, a silent, resolute offer. His decision was made, driven not by logic, but by a simple, profound act of empathy. The elders, despite their stoicism, seemed to collectively exhale, a barely audible sound of relief. Their dim eyes brightened fractionally. One, the designated Cathar healer, a being whose hands trembled with the effort of holding steady, approached Jocks with a thin, almost invisible needle, connected by a shimmering organic tube to the glowing device beside Lyra. The air was thick with unspoken tension, a fragile moment of silent promise hanging in the vast, quiet medical bay. Jocks felt the sharp, brief prick as the needle entered his vein, a dull ache that quickly faded. He watched, his gaze unwavering, as a thin, crimson stream, his own human blood, began to flow through the translucent tube, carrying his life force, his very essence, towards the fading alien princess. The glow of the Cathar device intensified, slightly reflecting in the healer's ancient eyes that held a flicker of something they hadn't known in a long, long time. Hope. The silence stretched again, but this time it was pregnant with possibility, a hushed anticipation of a miracle that might, just might, be about to unfold. As the thin, shimmering tube pulsed with the dark, rich crimson of Jax's blood, flowing steadily into Princess Lyra's frail arm. A profound stillness descended upon the Cathar medical bay. The air, already thick with the scent of decay and desperation, seemed to hold its breath. The Cathar elders, their translucent forms barely visible in the dim light, leaned forward, their ancient, weary eyes fixed on Lyra, a silent, collective prayer etched onto their fading faces. Jocks watched, his own breath held a strange mixture of apprehension and grim determination tightening his chest. He felt a faint, almost imperceptible tug at his arm, a sensation that was more than just the physical draw of the blood, as if something within Lyra was reaching out, pulling not just his essence, but a deeper, unseen part of him into her. Then a ripple. Not a tremor, but a wave of energy, subtle at first, pulsed through Lyra's prone form. It was a vibrant, incandescent crimson, mirroring the color of the human blood, but imbued with an intensity that defied its source. It wasn't just flowing. It seemed to erupt from within her, pushing outwards. It began as a faint blush beneath her sickly gray scales, a blush that rapidly deepened, spreading like wildfire across her skin. The Cathar healers, who had anticipated a slow, gradual infusion, perhaps a temporary boost to her failing life signs, gasped in a collective, guttural exhalation. This was not the gentle reignition they had hoped for. This was an explosion of vitality, a furious awakening. The blight which had clung to Lyra like a suffocating shroud seemed to recoil. Where the crimson energy touched, the gray receded, shrinking back from the raw, vibrant power. It was like watching a shadow being banished by a sudden, brilliant light. The dullness in Lyra's scales didn't just lessen, it vanished. They began to shimmer with an intensity that was almost painful to behold, reflecting the ethereal lights of the medical bay in a dazzling, ever-changing dance of azure and gold, colors more vivid than any Caithar had seen in generations. Then her eyes, Lyra's large, liquid eyes, which moments before had been dim, unfocused pools of despair, snapped open. They blazed with an unexpected, searing intensity, pools of swirling cosmic dust, suddenly ignited by an internal star. They were not merely seeing again. They were perceiving with a clarity and depth that seemed to encompass the entire chamber, perhaps even beyond. And then the hum. A strange, harmonic hum resonated within the Caithar medical bay, originating from Lyra. It was not a sound heard with the ears alone, but a vibration felt deep within the chest, a low, resonant thrum that seemed to vibrate through the very deck. Plates of the Star Whisperer. It grew stronger, an almost musical throb that filled the sterile space, a living melody that hinted at vast, untapped energies. The Caithar healers, their stoicism shattered, stumbled backward, their ancient faces contorted in a mixture of awe and profound bewilderment. Their diagnostic instruments, which had registered Lyra's declining life signs moments before, now shrieked with overloaded readings, their screens flashing with impossible data. Cellular regeneration unlike anything in their vast medical archives was occurring at an exponential rate. Not just healing, but a fundamental reweaving of tissue, a repatterning of Lyra's very genetic structure. It was as if her entire being was being rapidly rebuilt, stronger, faster, fundamentally different. JAX, still connected to Lyra by the delicate tube, felt the resonance too. It wasn't just a sound. It was a profound surge of energy that flowed back into him from Lyra, a reciprocal current that sent a jolt through his entire body. He felt a fleeting moment of dizziness, a sensation of his own senses sharpening, becoming unervingly acute. He could almost taste the air, hear the subtle hum of the Caithar vessel's failing systems with startling clarity, and perceive the faint, shimmering aura that now surrounded Lyra. It was as if his own internal wiring was being momentarily recalibrated by a force beyond his comprehension. He saw the Caithar healers, their faces contorted with a mixture of professional shock and ancient fear, exchanging frantic, low-voiced communications in their guttural language. Their gestures were sharp, their movements agitated. Unlike their earlier measured sorrow, they spoke of impossible cellular matrices, of unforeseen energetic integration, and of the Blight's catastrophic recoil. The Blight, their generational enemy, was not simply retreating. It was being violently repelled, its very essence seemingly destabilized by the potent, foreign energy of human blood. The crimson resonance intensified, pulsing in sync with Lyra's now strong, steady heartbeat. The hum filled the ship, not just the medical bay, but seemed to extend throughout the Star Whisperer. Faint, flickering lights along the distant corridors brightened momentarily, then dimmed again, as if the vessel itself was reacting to this sudden, unexpected surge of vitality. The Caithar scientists, their hands hovering over their diagnostic consoles, began to whisper of ancient prophecies, of legends that spoke of a life-giver, a being whose essence could reignite the dying embers of a star. But those were myths, bedtime stories for their young. This was real, this was happening. Lyra, still unconscious, lay at the center of this burgeoning energy, a beacon of crimson light in a dying world. Her chest rose and fell with a newfound strength, her breaths deep and full, a stark contrast to the shallow gasps she had taken moments before. The Cathar chief healer, a being named Kale, finally broke the spell of stunned silence. He moved with a renewed, almost desperate urgency towards Lyra, his frail hands reaching for the instruments. His ancient eyes, though still filled with wonder, now held a glint of profound trepidation. This wasn't merely a cure. This was an unpredictable transformation, a change of unknown, perhaps terrifying, magnitude. The very fabric of Cathar biology, their understanding of life itself, was being rewritten before their eyes. The silence in the medical bay, once heavy with sorrow, was now charged with a new, exhilarating, yet deeply unsettling power. Jocks, still connected, still feeling the strange ebb and flow of energy between him and Lyra, watched the spectacle unfold. He had offered his blood to save a life, a simple act of human kindness. He had never imagined it would ignite such a profound, almost cosmic change. The question hung in the shimmering, resonating air. What had he truly given to the fading alien princess? And what would happen next, now that the spark had not just been rekindled, but fundamentally, irrevocably transformed? The Star Whisperer, once attuned, now thrummed with a new, powerful, and deeply mysterious heartbeat. Lyra's eyes, now blazing with an unearthly intensity, flickered open fully, taking in the Cathar medical bay with a clarity that shocked even her transformed senses. The once dim and mournful chamber now appeared vibrant, almost painfully bright. Its subtle energy flows visible to her in shimmering, ethereal streams of light. She saw the panicked, awestruck faces of the Cathar elders, their translucent forms now seeming almost solid under her heightened,